Hello guys, Joker the Fool back at it again with the 120th episode of the Braxcast, and this is pretty exciting. It is July 11th, the day I am recording and posting this, hopefully, which is Rippaverse Day. So Rippaverse celebrates its 4-year anniversary. So 4 years ago, ISOM number 1 launched onto the scene. It's absolutely fantastic, made multi-millions, I forget the exact amount, 2.7, however much money it was. The Rippaverse has been a hit ever since then. I did miss last week. It was 4th of July weekend, and I kind of got a little bit too lazy. But there wasn't really anything in this week that was announced, this week that I missed. But this happened the previous week, near the end of June, beginning of July, that we have the launch of free Dokumaan cards, or Dokumaan card decks, I ought to say. So number 6, 7, and 8 are available for pre-order. You can get them individually for $85, or you can get them as one pack for like $225, $215 or so. And there are milestones associated, so these are all going to be, I think, 600 decks limit, and then there's milestones based on the amount of decks sold, and I believe all of them have been hit. That's what it says on the website, but I'm not entirely sure if we've hit all of those. So one of them is that we're getting the art of Will Conrad. So Will Conrad is the artist for most of the Dokumaan decks, are basically all of them that exist so far. I think there are different artists for these new ones. Don't quote me on that. And the art of Will Conrad, which you can pre-order along with these Dokumaan cards in this collection, is available. The second one is that these are all going to be 10 decks, 10 card decks. But since we hit that milestone, it will be an 11 card deck. And then the third milestone, which as far as checking today, I haven't seen launched, but there's going to be deck 8.5, which is not available for pre-order yet, but I think it will be. Although if like Andrew or somebody else from the Rippaverse staff is watching this, they can correct me on that. But we will go over the decks, so because we got the actual character names and also the books that they cover. So Deck 6 is covering Rippazine 4 in Norfolka One Glorious Death, which is going to feature, of course, Winslow Valiant, Betty Brooke. So they're the two protagonists of Catch and Kill, which, of course, is getting that Exclave book. So really cool to have their Dokumaan cards. And this is featuring a bunch of characters from Norfolka. So you've got Alfador, Brager, Vidor, Baldir, Angrea, Blagada, and Berglamir, and that's a bunch of the characters from Norfolka, basically rounding out that deck number 6. And now number 7 is going to finish off Norfolka, going into Rippazine number 5, which is Blue Shift Tryouts, and then Horseman number 1 and 2. So number 7's character cast is Liderio, Solicio, Solvara, Arhaya. You got Zephyr Arland, Trinity Sakura, which is interesting. That kind of maybe implies that she is an Accept as well. Who knows? Maybe she could know, somebody from, like, be connected with William Arnashi. That's a very interesting theory. You got Ian Summers, you've got Jules Arland, you've got Tina Sardarsky, and you've got Cal Buxton as well, which, of course, not only is Cal in Horseman 1 and 2, he's also featured in Alpha Core number 2. So very, very interesting to see that. And that is the 7th deck. Now the 8th deck is Horseman 1 through 2. So I'm rounding out some more characters from those two books. Blood Roof number 2, Alpha Core number 2, and the Detention Crew. So you got Duel, April Bloodroof, Casey Bloodroof, Agi Bloodroof, Duffy, Tokamak, Boonjack, Death to Fire, Golden, and Golden Dogbone, I believe. And those are basically all the characters from these free Dokumaan decks. So really cool. This is, of course, the biggest launch of Dokumaan's cards. 3 decks in one go. Of course, ISOM number 1 4 years ago to the day launched with the Dokumaan cards, and that was a really exciting thing. The fact that we got lenticular cards. Fact of the matter is that there's the Rippaverse membership, which still hasn't been upgraded. We're still waiting on that because that was supposed to be a really big thing that's happening. I'm sure it still is. It's just, I guess it's still in the works. They're cooking, I suppose. But when that forum launched, and before it was integrated as Rippaverse members, it was just Eric July's, I guess, alternative. He had a alternative to Patreon. He shut down the Patreon, did his own thing, and that included a forum. And on that forum, he made a post about the Rippaverse, basically before ISOM 1 launched, and some details for the biggest supporters. And the Dokumaan cards were actually included in that information, a little bit of Rippaverse deep lore if you wanted. But just a reflection on these past 4 years, and it has been a really fantastic ride. But after, I would say, Blood Roof launched last year is when things have really been heating up. And now we're getting to the point where I've got a backlog of Rippaverse books to review, and it's only going to get worse if I don't get all my stuff and actually get those books out in review, because Alpha Core 3 is on the way, and there's just going to be a whole, for this latter half of the year, bunch of books that are fulfilling now that they're locked up with the Hachette book group, and they're actually doing distribution through them globally. You're going to see these books just come out and get released basically right away. And that is going to be a really, really cool thing to see. That we're going to get Alpha Core and Horseman. Of course, the Exclave event is coming on the scene. And all this felt like very much like a thing that wasn't going to materialize nearly as quickly as was going to. Now, of course, the possibilities were endless when this book made over $1 million in 24 hours. This, of course, being ISOM number 1, really just shattering the expectations that anybody had for what an indie comic could do in a campaign format, the crowdfunding format. Even though no Rippaverse book has been crowdfunded, it was in the same format where you had the amount of money and the amount of backers visible. And it just really shattered the expectations that anybody had for what books were doing on Kickstarter and Indiegogo. Even had Berserker being basically the biggest thing in terms of comics, and that was with Keanu Reeves, and Rippaverse really just obliterated that as well. So it just is amazing to see what Eric July and the team he's gathered around him have been able to do in these 4 years in terms of taking Rippaverse from being just a book that's really successful to an actual comic book publisher that is just churning out books. Of course, you've got animation. We're still waiting on the Rippaverse animations that were crowdfunded, because you've got Rippaworks as well. So there's just a lot of really cool things that the one book, ISOM, that launched on this day has really spawned. And I'm just excited to see not only how the next 4 years go, but like when the Rippaverse celebrates its 10-year anniversary. That'll be really interesting to see, right? So it just is such an amazing thing to have gotten in when I got in. And if you're still, if you're still on the same page as me, getting in with ISOM number 1, this is your first exposure to the Rippaverse, there really is no better time to engage and read Rippaverse books because it's only going to get better. It's only going to get deeper from here as we get more books. But it just really is amazing on this Rippaverse day that 4 years of one already passed, and just the amount of stuff that has happened in 4 years, because I've never really seen an indie comic company actually capitalize on any sort of momentum to this degree. Now, of course, I'd say this is the only indie comic company that's had this degree of success, but capitalizing on that in terms of taking that and not only building a company that's making a lot of books, but just a narrative and a world that feels cohesive and awesome, and one that you really want to get invested in, really is unique to the Rippaverse for indie comics. Of course, you got Marvel, you got DC, you got the Imageverse, and all that is well, good and dandy. But in terms of just independent company, that really just had one man's aspirations and dreams as the driving factor behind it. Spawning all of this in just 4 years is really quite amazing. I think it serves as not only just an inspiration to independent creatives, but just as something that people can genuinely enjoy and not have any sort of moral baggage that they kind of carry around when it's like, oh, I want to watch, a Disney movie, even, it's good, but, it's owned by this massive corporation, or there's a Marvel or a DC comic that is good, or there's a game from EA or Ubisoft that happens to be good, but they're owned by these soulless corporations that are just funding and hiring people that are completely antithetical to any sort of decent moral system. It's not a problem with the Rippaverse. And, of course, that's well and good, but the books are actually good. It's not like you're just buying these books just to support them as culture war bonds. You can buy them and just enjoy them as good comic books and not even care about the political nonsense of the world. And that really is supposed to be the point of not just comic books, but entertainment in general. And I think that's what the Rippaverse is getting back to. I'm very, very glad to see that. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you guys enjoyed this episode, Joker is out.
Thank you for tuning in to the Braxcast. Be sure to like, comment, follow, and subscribe to keep up with the Rippaverse.